Welcome. The following is an audio transcription of the Valve Software Reddit Ask Me Anything thread for Half-Life Alyx, which took place on January 22nd, 2020. I've only included the questions that relate specifically to Half-Life Alyx that the team responded to. Some questions have been edited to not include questions Valve did not answer. This recording was pretty time-consuming. If you like this content, please like and subscribe for future Half-Life Alyx and other virtual reality-related content. Thanks, and enjoy. We're developers from the Half-Life Alyx team. Ask us anything. Hi r/Half-Life. We are a few members of the Half-Life Alyx team at Valve. Here today from the team, we have Robin Walker, Jamal Bradley, David Feiss, Greg Coomer, Corey Peters, Eric Wolpaw, Tristan Reedford, Chris Remo, Jake Rodkin, and Casey Atchison Boyle. We are a mix of designers, programmers, animators, sound designers, and artists on the game. We'll be taking your questions for an hour starting at around 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Note that while you can ask us anything, any questions you have about Half-Life story spoilers will be handed over to Eric Wolpaw, who will lie to you. Smash Lurks asks, Number 1. When Half-Life Alyx releases, will we be getting the full Source 2 SDK, or will we be getting a more limited authoring tools type deal which only allows us to make content for Half-Life Alyx's workshop? Number 2. Will Half-Life Alyx's build of Source 2 be documented on the Valve Developer Wiki? Half-Life team response. We're not currently planning on shipping a full SDK. We'd really like to release one at some point, but it's a ton of work because Source 2 is a new toolset, much of which hasn't been previously released. Any time we spend on it now is also time we could be spending on polishing the game itself, which we think is more important. As a result, we thought it wasn't appropriate to promise anything before release. Generally, this is how we've done SDKs in our previous Source 1 titles as well. Making the game takes precedence, and after that's done, we start looking at what's next. Thole Gaming asks, You seem confident in releasing the game on time. How much would you say of the game is done? I'm worried about Valve time kicking in. Thanks. Half-Life team response. With the exception of some tweaks to the absolute final scene, the game is done. Lots of us at Valve, as well as playtesters, have played through the entire game multiple times. Right now we're primarily polishing and fixing bugs, which is where we'd hope to be at this point in the development cycle. We're confident we'll hit our intended release. We let the Valve time happen before we announced the game. Pokeheart65 replies, Awesome! Are we going to get a gameplay reveal anytime soon? Half-Life team responds, Yes, it's our plan to release gameplay videos in the lead up to launch. Our intention is to use these to showcase not just gameplay elements, but also VR-specific elements like different movement options. No Biting asks, If Alyx's voice actor was recast, will we ever know why? Half-Life team responds, We worked with Merle at the beginning of Half-Life Alyx development, but in the end, felt we wanted to go in a different direction. We love Merle. Her work in Half-Life 2 was instrumental in bringing Alyx to life, and we hope to work with her again in the future. World with Pyramids asks, Do you feel Half-Life Alyx has changed tonally from the original Half-Life games? More lighthearted, more humorous? Additionally, does a speaking player character fundamentally change the way the game is written and designed in any significant ways? Half-Life team responds, This is Wolpaw. I don't think it's changed dramatically. Honestly though, I think the Half-Life games are closer in tone to the Portal games than they are to, say, The Last of Us. I spent a part of every day for 13 years talking to Laidlaw about writing, and the authors that inspired him like Frederick Baum and Robert Sheckley and crime writer Charles Willeford are all known for darkly comedic takes on genre fiction. Hell, he even named a character in episode 2 after Sheckley. Having the viewpoint character speak is mostly liberating. It certainly makes writing scenes easier when you don't have to write around the fact that the main character is mute. It's also easier to have the player feel they're actually an active participant in the scene. In Portal, we got around it a little by actually acknowledging the main character is mute. I think it's a lot more tricky when you have to maintain a fragile fiction that the player character can talk but simply isn't for some reason. Anyway, I was and still am happy that the main character speaks. ET Builder replies, "So does this confirm Chell was physically mute and not refusing to speak out of principle? I've heard both and was never sure." Half-Life team responds, "Yeah, in our head she could talk and just chose not to, but we acknowledge that she wasn't speaking in a way Mark never really did in Half-Life. None of the characters expected Chell to talk." Alyx DD asks, "Will Half-Life Alyx be dubbed in other languages?" Half-Life team responds, "We will be doing subtitles at launch for 10 total languages: English, French, German, Spanish, Spain, Japanese, Korean, Russian, Simplified Chinese, Spanish, Latin America, and Traditional Chinese. Voiceover in other languages is something we're still considering." No Biting asks, "How many people are working on Half-Life Alyx?" Half-Life team responds, "Right now it's around 80 people, which puts it in the largest single team we've ever had at Valve." Sman Deman asks, "Hi, very excited for this AMA. A couple things. 1. Was Half-Life Alyx the main reason you decided to open up communications with the community more? 2. Are you experiencing any problems that you might have to delay for, without going into details? This month really seems to be delay month because of Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy VII Remake. 3. What is the most exciting mechanic you can talk about without spoiling anything? Thanks for doing this AMA." Half-Life team responds, "Hey Smandaman, Jamal here. We always enjoy speaking with the community. Our games like Dota and Counter-Strike have a long history of ongoing communication with their players. For Half-Life Alyx, our first single-player campaign in several years, we wanted to be able to speak to the community in a different way than we do with our service games. That prompted much of the recent work we've done on social media and other venues like the new Half-Life Alyx site. It was a great opportunity to widen our outreach as Valve more broadly. The team is working diligently, and we're on track to deliver Half-Life Alyx on our announced release date. It's an exciting time. We don't want to spoil too much of the game, but my personal favorite mechanic is being able to grab and manipulate so many different things with my hands." Orma Goisha asks, "How involved was Mark Laidlaw with Half-Life Alyx? Rumor has it there was a bit of a falling out internally. Has he consulted on the story for Half-Life Alyx recently? Did Kelly Bailey return to do the music? How much did Half-Life 1 influence the VR title? Obviously there is a Half-Life 2 feel to this game, but there are plenty of us who miss the Half-Life 1 feel." Half-Life team responds, "We've never really been able to figure out where the rumors of us falling out with Mark came from, because there's no truth to it. He's been super generous with his time throughout the development of Half-Life Alyx, answering many questions from Eric, Jay, and Sean as they hammered away on the story. As is always the case with Mark, we send him an email and he sends us a response, and then roughly 40 more replies to his own email. Several of the Half-Life Alyx team members worked on Half-Life 1. There are some things we think we did better in Half-Life 1 than Half-Life 2, so we did go back to look at it again. As an example of that, the Soldier AI in Half-Life 1 was something that we looked at carefully during the development of the Combine soldiers in Half-Life Alyx." Half-Life team responds, "Dave here, sound designer. Music on Half-Life Alyx is being done by Mike Muraski of Portal 2, Team Fortress 2, and more. And I know he's talked with Kelly quite a bit about his approach to the music of Half-Life, so you'll probably hear some of that come through, but in Mike's unique style." Valve News Network asks, 1. What caused the decision to recast Merle Dandridge as Alyx Vance? According to Merle, she was never asked to sound younger, even though she knows she could. 2. What percentage are your announced locomotion and comfort features at? How will the team be implementing a seated mode if the game has not been designed for such a mode? Where is smooth locomotion at, and what is left for it? 3. When releasing the tools, has the team decided if they will release the full SDK or just the Half-Life Alyx specific mapping tools? 4. Jeff Keighley has expressed interest in releasing the contents of 4 discs containing early builds of Half-Life 1. He states the bottleneck is permission from you, Valve. Can he do this? 5. Could I interview any willing members of Half-Life Alyx team in the preceding and proceeding weeks of Half-Life Alyx's release? Thank you. Tyler McVicker. Half-Life team responds. Our locomotion and comfort features are all done, including things like seated, left-handed mode, etc. We have almost all of our accessibility work done as well, but there's a little bit more we'd like to do there. Support for one-armed play, for instance. We'll be talking about and showing more of our various locomotion options in some upcoming videos. If you have any questions about specific accessibility features you need, then feel free to reply here or send Gabe an email. Geozak22 asks, will there be a train ride in Half-Life Alyx? Half-Life team responds. It's actually illegal to ship a Half-Life game if you don't spend at least a little time riding in a train. Mad Scientist 350 asks, 1. What did the team learn when developing enemy AI systems for virtual reality? 2. Does Half-Life Alyx use a dynamic soundtrack? Thanks. Half-Life team responds. Dave here, sound designer. I'm unsure what you mean by dynamic soundtrack. If you mean, do the music and sound effects react or change in some way in regards to what's going on in game? Then the answer is absolutely yes. Wampa replies, whoa, okay, that's super interesting to hear. Do you guys have a soundtrack planned for release with the game, or will it be released at a later date? Always loved Half-Life music. Half-Life team responds. It's on our radar. Super Small asks, I have a couple questions. If you are unable to answer any for any reason, it's fine. 1. Will the full Source 2 SDK be released with the game, or only the Hammer level editor? 2. How will user-created content be implemented? Will it be similar to how it was in Portal 2? 3. Will the game feature a developer commentary similar to that seen in previous titles? Half-Life team responds. Thanks, Super Small. We did answer the SDK question above. We are huge fans of commentary and definitely plan on producing it for Half-Life Alyx, but it's unlikely that we will have it for launch day. Sterling FM asks, how are barnacles a threat in VR? Do they pull the player upward, or do they kill you instantly to avoid player discomfort? 2. Will there be any callbacks to original Combine Soldier and CP Officer designs from Half-Life 2? 3. Do creatures react to audio that the player creates, as seen in the trailer with the mysterious new creature that scurries away after hearing Alyx move a bucket? 4. Is limb dismemberment body damage system in the game, similar to the system used in Left 4 Dead 2? 5. For the smooth locomotion option, will it also support VR jumping? Thank you. I'm greatly looking forward to the game. Half-Life team responds. Yes, barnacles are a threat in VR. They don't kill you instantly. You'll deal with them in familiar ways, but the opportunities afforded by VR also give you new methods to use against them. We experimented with moving the player, but moving the player without their input in VR didn't work very well. As with many aspects of working on this game, we've had to find new ways to take well-worn mechanics and other Half-Life staples into the specific framework of VR. Similarly, Combine Soldiers definitely return, both in the form you've previously seen them, as well as with new variations to keep the player busy and take advantage of VR. Some creatures respond to the audio more than others, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's an example of this we're particularly excited about. As with audio, limb dismemberment is not a factor in most combat encounters, but there is a very notable exception. Because the game includes the ability to mantle in continuous motion, you don't often need to jump. For instance, if you need to get past an obstacle like a crate, you mantle up rather than jump up. The only time you need to jump is to traverse a short gap, which happens very rarely. We've tried a few iterations of jumping, but ultimately found that even in continuous motion, players preferred dealing with those jumps with a teleport style movement. Joel Kamtar asks, horror in VR. Among the testers, did any of them have to remove the headset out of fear or disgust for the zombie horror atmosphere? Like most of us here, I only tried VR in public areas and non-violent games, so I really don't know what to expect regarding that matter. Ravenholm was so scary when I was younger, and going through this was a real achievement for me back then. Anyway, I really hope I can get my index in time for release, and thanks for bringing back Half-Life. Half-Life team responds. Tristan here. I admit I cannot deal with headcrabs in general, and definitely not in VR. If I'm testing the game, and I'm in an area where I know one of those things is around, I'll remove the headset and hold it off my face as I attempt to navigate on the 2D screen monitor to lessen the impact of headcrab discovery. Disappointingly for me, it seems that I'm the only one on the team who can't deal. We handle the scarier parts pretty well in terms of making the game accessible. Horror is part of the franchise, and through playtesting, we feel like we've gained some confidence about where to draw this line. Some of our gorier visuals tend to evoke a grim fascination rather than revulsion or panic. And apart from myself, we've hardly ever seen anyone nope out of a playtest, even during the creepier sections. So among testers, I still seem to be the outlier on horror tolerance. Boldhams asks, in Half-Life Alyx, what aspects of the previous Half-Life games did you make sure to include? And what are some of the things you felt the need to change? Apart from VR, obviously. Half-Life team responds. Hey Boldhams. We did include many of our favorite creatures from the previous games with some interesting twists, but we don't want to spoil too much of what you will be experiencing in Half-Life Alyx. PM Body Parts asks, hi, Half-Life 1 was the first game I ever played, and the series has held a special place in my heart ever since. It's really thrilling to finally see a new installment. Number 1. The trailer implies that the player character will be voiced for the first time in a Half-Life game. Is that the case? And if so, did it affect the way you approach narrative design, dialogue, and NPC interactions? 2. Does the above represent a deliberate shift in design ethos away from blank state player characters like Gordon Freeman? 3. Has designing for VR necessitated a change in the approach to level design? Did you find it suited more linear or less linear maps? Did it affect verticality in level design? 4. Will Half-Life Alyx feel similar tonally and atmospherically to Half-Life 2, or have you shifted in a more serious or less serious direction? 5. Will we find out why Laszlo was the finest mind of his generation? Half-Life team responds. This is Wolpaw. I personally prefer writing games where the viewpoint character speaks. We made the silence of the protagonist into a joke in the Portals, but you only get to pull the gag once. I had a lot of fun writing for the Left 4 Deads where the characters were little chatterboxes, so if I had my own way we wouldn't do any more silent protagonists. That said, I don't get my way as often as I deserve, so who knows what's gonna happen. Bychop asks, is Half-Life Alyx using the Steam Audio HRTF? In the lab, one of the orb rooms was stripped out before it was released on Steam. According to the data mining, it laid the foundation of what we think is Half-Life Alyx. What was the element that caused the team to remove it? Was it the gravity gun? Half-Life team responds. We're using Steam Audio HRTF, DSP, and occlusion in Half-Life Alyx. Having the SA development team in the same building has been really beneficial to the audio team, since we've been able to quickly iterate with them on feature requests and performance issues. Yep, One of the various internal prototypes that led to Half-Life Alyx was a slice of Half-Life style gameplay in the lab. Jeff has told us that he wants to cover some more of those prototypes in his final hours of Half-Life Alyx. No Biting asks, will we be seeing any familiar faces that we haven't already seen in the trailer? Half-Life team responds, yes. Slappy Cromwell asks, when are you going to show Gordon's ponytail again? We haven't seen the back of Gordon's head in any of the games in nearly 20 years now. Half-Life team responds, it was 1998. We all had bad haircuts. I don't think we need to continue punishing Gordon for all our hairstyle sins. Monty at Work asks, what changed? 12 years of Valve not mentioning Half-Life, not putting out any new swag or toys or shirts or art or things for fans to buy, no celebrations of its anniversaries with the community. What changed within the culture of Valve that suddenly you not only mention Half-Life, but artists start putting out art? Valve gets and becomes active on Twitter, and you announce a new game. What turned Valve from an essentially allergic to Half-Life company that's quiet and doesn't talk directly to us fans about the IP into someone hosting an AMA right here? Sincerely, those of us who have been here in the sub waiting all these years, wondering what's going on. Half-Life team responds, hi Monty at Work. Half-Life isn't like Fight Club. There was no first rule of, we must never speak of it, over the last decade or so. The real answer is super simple. We didn't talk about Half-Life for a long time because we weren't actively working on a Half-Life game. Once Half-Life Alyx became a reality internally, it was already clear to us that this was something we wanted to involve the community in. We're going to be doing more of this over the next few weeks as we prepare to launch it. Oh, and the actual first rule of Half-Life? There must be a train in the game, or we legally cannot ship it. At least according to Woolpaw in a previously answered question here. Kiko Anno asks, why did you decide to have boring, flat, and simple ceilings, like for example in the apartment hallway? Did the boring ceilings get any better since the last time we saw them from the trailer? Half-Life team responds, function_boring_ceiling is a hallmark of the Half-Life series. We did significant playtesting and iteration to make them more boring than ever, which was a particular challenge in VR, where even the most boring surface takes on the sheen of novelty and delight. Rojahel asks, the Half-Life Alyx website states that Hammer will be updated with VR tools and components. What other features, if any, will be added to improve Hammer? Will it be possible to make community content in Source 2 for Source 1 games such as CSGO, Left 4 Dead 2, and Team Fortress 2? Or will the new editor be Half-Life Alyx exclusive? I look forward to playing with Source 2. Half-Life team response, this is Corey, a level designer here. Hammer in Source 2 has been overhauled from the ground up. Everything from how geometry is built and textured to how asset creation is done has been improved to increase the speed and ease at which we can build and iterate on levels. One big feature for us on Half-Life Alyx was the addition of a system similar to Layers, where individual map files from multiple level designers, environment artists, and sound designers are combined into a single map. This had a huge impact on how many disciplines could get their hands into each map, which resulted in a much denser level of content throughout the game. Walmart Waffle asks, what is the ending? Half-Life team responds, we can't tell you, even though we definitely have one, because it would be a huge spoiler. But if you do have an idea for an ending, feel free to forward it, today if possible. Yabba Troll asks, I've got 3 questions. Number 1. In the announcement trailer, you can see Alyx use a cool jury-rigged one-handed shotgun. I love it, but the choice to make the game's shotgun weapon one-handed seems like a strange choice unless all the guns are one-handed. Will there be two-handed weapons in-game? Possibly multiple weapons that take the same ammo? like the classic Half-Life spaz with the new handheld shotgun already seen? Number 2. How will inventory management of weapons ammo work? Games like H3VR, Boneworks, and Pavlov VR all use similar systems where the items go into different slots on your body, depending on their size. But with the large amount of different weapons one picks up throughout Half-Life campaigns, these might not be adequate. How will our Alyx carry all her guns and switch between them? Number 3. The Source 2 SDK is said to be coming with the release of Half-Life Alyx. Although Alyx itself does not have multiplayer, how easy would it be to create multiplayer VR games in the SDK? Half-Life team responds. Our weapons all require only one hand, but they can be optionally grabbed and steadied by your offhand. We really wanted to focus on simultaneous two-handed play throughout the game, so we needed the player to always be able to easily have a free hand. We keep that hand pretty busy with gravity gloves, movement, world interactions, flashlight, and so on. We have a few systems for inventory and weapon selection, all designed with the goal of keeping the player's eyes on the environment as much as possible. We have an over-the-shoulder contextual inventory system for ammo on your offhand. Your weapon hand has a quick weapon select feature, and we have a couple of wrist bags for some of the other items. Camille asks, thanks for opening up the company more for direct communication with the community this past year. And Mr. Woolpaw, nice to have you back. I'll be asking the more technical questions, and let the lore ones be asked by other people, just so the technical people have things to answer. Number 1. How much fidelity has been added to the engine to make the in-VR experience feel closer to real life than previously? I mean things like texture resolution, materials definition, soundscapes, and sound propagation processing. Maybe cues and hints in object and prop definition, e.g. door, box, mug, handles. Also things like animation adaptation to collisions with the world environment and cloth simulation. Number 2. How much has the revamped SDK tools helped streamline development? Have you made measurements comparing time taken to construct a level to a certain spec in Source versus Source 2 for VR? Number 3. Any thoughts on mobility and accessibility issues in the emerging VR space? How about the ease of entry, plus learning curve, into the VR scape for somebody with zero prior gaming experience? Number 4. How much variety can we expect from the filler NPCs in terms of modeling and voice lines? Are they reprising the settled role of citizen rebel-like in Half-Life 2, or can we expect more variety? Are there child NPCs now that the game takes place closer to the 7-hour war? How much more lived in is the setting of Half-Life Alyx? E.g., people seen doing jobs instead of just walking down the streets. Number 5. Weapon selection from the tested demo footage seemed to rely on selection wheels, and an earlier answer hints that the game is basically complete. Any thoughts of implementing more realistic weapon selection system like Boneworks, which may come later as updates if so needed? Number 6. Game units fixed yet, or are we still disproportionately short? Okay, enough questions. Don't want to spend any more time typing questions. Half-Life team responds. Dave here, sound designer. A short and incomplete list of audio features we've added or improved in Half-Life Alyx. Soundscape system improved to be more fully integrated with audio systems as a whole. Our music system is new. Numerous Steam audio improvements. Huge amount of work on lower level audio systems. New tools for mixing and implementing sounds. From a sound design perspective, we'd had to change how we think about the sounds we make and implement. A lot of things are the same as making a traditional game. Good art, sound, is good in VR as well, but there are a few new factors as well. A main one for me was figuring out ways of making environments sonically interesting for players who want to take their time and explore, which happens much more frequently in VR. Chronic asks, can you catch a head crab in a bucket, or put a bucket on a head crab for it to cluelessly wander around? Half-Life team response. You can put a bucket on a head crab. and it'll move the bucket as it crawls around. Playtesters all keep reporting it as a bug. Corey Reynolds asks, "Hi, how did you create some of the more gruesome sounds of the game?" Half-Life team responds, "Most of the gore is based on meat and vegetable recordings, with some condiment recordings as well. We've also killed a lot of zombies." No Biting asks, "Will there be gameplay enhancements for the finger tracking on the index controllers?" Half-Life team responds, "Index controller finger tracking allows for greater player expression and more opportunities for fine-grained engagement with the world. But the game was tested with all major VR solutions throughout development to ensure full compatibility for all required interactions." Keijirufu asks, "Hi, huge longtime fan here. Has the Alyx team experimented with using inverse kinematics for showing full player arms, bodies in game? If so, why did you decide not to include this in the game, or at least not in the trailers?" Number 2. Playing Half-Life 2 and the massive variety of source mods over the years was a huge part of growing up. Can you comment on whether a Source 2 SDK will be available, either at release of Half-Life Alyx Hammer Editor or potentially later in the game's lifecycle? Number 3. Could we get some new physical merch? I never bought a headcrab hat when they were in stock, and would love a restock of those. Number 4. How much were you able to tell your family friends about what you were actually doing at work during development of the game? How do you feel about the new Valve, with a dedicated PR and social media person, and so far a more open and communicative approach towards game development and marketing? And did you find the announcement of the game to be relieving? Did you get the response you expected or wanted from the community? Half-Life team responds, "We don't render arms due to our experiences with playtesting. Briefly, we found that players themselves don't notice them missing. Spectators do, obviously, and they don't like them obscuring their view. We actually simulate invisible arms though, which connect from your hands back up to your HMD. And we use those to detect impossible things like completely closing a drawer over your wrist. We're planning on releasing a video going into the tech behind our VR hands, interactions, etc. So there will be more on this soon." For the Citadel, the fiction we went with involved the Citadel's full-height core being teleported in place, like a giant spear in the ground. The Combine then build around this core, fleshing it out from gathered resources, which is how you see it in the trailer. An under-construction Citadel was a useful visual cliché that helped establish an earlier timeline than Half-Life 2. Physical merch is something we want to do more of. We plan to have some of it available before release. Working on Half-Life Alyx before we announced it was pretty worrisome. I have a teenage son, and for 4 years I've refused to tell him what game I was working on, because I knew he wouldn't be able to keep it to himself. On the team we joked that releasing the game was much less scary than announcing it. But in the end, we are very happy of how it's been received, and we're really excited to get it finished and into your hands." Welshboy99 asks, "Greetings from a humble Half-Life fan. Number 1. Regarding Half-Life Alyx, other than Eli and the G-Man, will we see other familiar faces from the overall Half-Life series? Number 2. What is the overall thoughts at Valve regarding community works when it comes to Half-Life, with such titles like Project Borealis, Boreal Alpha Black Mesa, A Place in the West, Echoes, Entropy Zero, and etc.? Do you see something similar with Half-Life Alyx in the future with fan-made content? Number 3. With this being the first big return to the series in over 12 years, how has this endeavor impacted the team overall? Will you guys be comfortable developing more Half-Life games within the future if Half-Life Alyx goes well? Thank you for taking the time to do this AMA. This is a huge plus for the community overall, and in the words of Dr. Isaac Kleiner, I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors." Half-Life team response, Jamal here. It's been great to work on these classic characters, and seeing them in VR has really excited everyone on the team. The Half-Life Alyx trailer gave you a taste of what is coming, but we are avoiding spoiling too much at this point. When it comes to the work the community does around the Half-Life series, we are humbled by the affinity and creativity that people have for the story and characters. We hope everyone will be as excited with Alyx's journey in Half-Life Alyx. Returning to Half-Life has been extremely motivating. We have a lot of affection for the universe and characters, and personally I am proud to be helping build on something so iconic. The team has many of the original Half-Life developers and a lot of new creative people who have made some integral additions to Half-Life Alyx and the overall Half-Life storyline. I don't know what we will do next with Half-Life, but I'm looking forward to what you all think of Half-Life Alyx. Lord Lebanon asks, "Hi guys, huge fan here. I was wondering if you were able to tell us what design changes from the previous Half-Life games you made. We see that there are different looks for the Combine soldiers and some different enemies. Were there any drastic changes to the look of the Half-Life universe?" Half-Life team responds, "There was a process of up-resing some familiar assets from Half-Life 2. During this process, we were always looking for opportunities to add more detail and leverage VR interactions, and pack as much world building into those new details as possible. The health charger you see in the trailer is a good example of this. We tried to do this wherever possible, whilst honoring the original designs." Zyplox XD asks, "How much content and replayability is there?" Half-Life team responds, "Playtesters have taken a similar amount of time to complete Half-Life Alyx as they did to complete Half-Life 2. The games are comparable in terms of total amount of content." Final response. "Thanks everyone. The team is heading back to our desks to work towards shipping the game, but we've really enjoyed this and hope you did as well."